Okay, so that's it for compound paths. Let's move on to the next topic, which is working with something called outline stroke, which is a pretty cool command here. Just like compound paths, I think what I'll do is start off on the more simplistic side to explain the concept, and then we'll move on and we'll actually apply it to some of our artwork here. So what I'm going to do is just find an empty area of space in my artwork here and just zoom in here so I have lots of space to work with here. And what I'll have you do is just grab your pencil tool and make sure you don't have a fill color in your toolbox here. So I'm just going to remove my fill color. So I'm just using black here and just draw some kind of a squiggly line there. There we are, very lovely. And the other thing that we want to do here is make the stroke a little bit thicker. So you can use your stroke palette if you want, or you can use your stroke option up on your control bar. Make it nice and thick here. The idea behind this outline stroke command is to convert a stroke to a filled object. So rather than it being a path, it's going to be a completely filled object. So I have my squiggly line here, and I'm going to go back to my black arrow tool to highlight it here. And then I'm going to go to the object menu and down to path, and then I'm looking for outline stroke. So I choose it there, and there it is. It looks exactly the same, except some of my blue dots moved around here. What exactly happened here? Well, let me prove it to you here that it actually worked. I'm just going to back up one step, Control Z or Command Z on the Mac, and I'm going to quickly switch over to my preview mode, which is Control or Command Y on your keyboard there. There's my path. I switch back to preview mode just by hitting Control Y or Command Y again, and I'll go and reapply my outline stroke command, so object path and then outline stroke. Then let's go back into our preview mode, so Control Y or Command Y, and sure enough, there's a filled object. And we can see over in the stroke palette that sure enough, there's no stroke applied to this object. You can also see down in the bottom of your toolbox here. So that's the idea behind the outline stroke command. You're basically taking a stroke and converting it to a filled object. Let's do a couple of other simple examples, and then I'll show you where you can actually use this in your work. So I'm going to get rid of my stroke palette. I'll just drag it back over to the side here. And this test squiggly line here, we can get rid of that. And let's try this command on a regular shape here. So I'm going to grab my rectangle tool, and I want to switch my fill and my stroke colors back to the default. So I'm just going to press the D key on my keyboard. There we are. And I'll just click and drag a shape here. There it is. Just like before, crank up the width of your stroke using your stroke palette or your command bar up at the top of your screen. And just so we can see what's going on here, I'm also going to change my fill color. I'll switch my fill color to maybe a red of some sort here. So there we are. Head back to your black arrow tool there, and let's go ahead and choose our command here. So object, down to path, and then outline stroke. There it is. Now this actually might be a little bit confusing here at first, because I said that it took the stroke and converted it to a filled object. But if you try separating the fill, the original fill I should say, and our stroke here, or what was our stroke, they're locked together. Well, all that is if you look over in your layers palette here, inside the layers palette we have a group. Inside that group we have our two objects. There's what was the stroke, and there's the inside fill. So let's break this apart a little bit further here. I'm going to take my object here, and I'm going to make sure that everything's selected here, and then from my object menu I'm going to go down to ungroup. That finally separates everything. So there's the original fill, and here's what's left of my stroke here. And interestingly, my stroke, or what was my stroke, my filled frame if you want to call it that, is simply a compound path. So in other words, this center object here is being used as a cookie cutter to knock a hole in this cookie dough here, if you want to use that metaphor. So what we could do if you wanted to is you could go to object and all the way down to compound path, and then you could choose release, and that breaks the compound path. There's the cookie cutter, there's the dough.